If you're building a Web3 project right now, stop. Because what I am about to share with you could save you from the number one mistake that kills 90% of projects before they even launch. And that is building the wrong team that ends up destroying their project. I've built Unfungible into a multi-seven-figure business per year. And along the way, have hired dozens of people. We currently have over 20 people on full-time payroll. And I've personally interviewed hundreds of candidates. I've made great hiring decisions and some less great ones. But along the way, I've managed to put together a team of what a lot of people call the Avengers of Web3. And in this video, my guarantee to you is that by the end of this video, you're going to know the exact methodology that I've used to hire the team that I have today, which has helped me build Unfungible into the business that it is today. What inspired this video was a recent conversation that I had with a Web3 founder who shared with me a recent costly mistake that they made. He said that they were looking for someone to run their influencer marketing campaign. So what they ended up doing was hiring this influencer who had a big following, big audience, and they hired that person and asked that person to manage and run the entire influencer marketing strategy for that brand. What ended up following was tens of thousands of dollars burnt on badly executed influencer marketing campaigns, as well as on salary and opportunity cost of hiring that person that was actually not a good fit for that role. In the context of a Web3 project, this could sometimes be the death blow. The reality of things is building in Web3 is you are oftentimes building in anticipation for a big launch. And sometimes one small error in the equation leading up to that launch could jeopardize the entire project. Think about a project launch as a succession of chains. All you need is one rusty chain that breaks under the pressure for the whole thing to lose tension. So one bad hire ends up putting the project on the wrong path, which leads in months of wasted time and tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars of badly invested resources. Now, truth be told, hiring in Web3 is incredibly hard. It's an industry that is hyper-specialized. And unlike other hyper-specialized industries, let's take AI, for example. We don't have years of talent development where we all of a sudden have a large pool of talent that we can tap into as founders or as team builders. So what we're left with is a hyper-specialized industry that requires hyper-specialized skill set with a pool of talent that is oftentimes young, inexperienced, and lacks professionalism. When you think about it, let's say you're hiring for a Web3 marketer. You need someone that is native to Web3 marketing. Someone with a marketing degree from some university doesn't do the cut. It's a completely different industry with different variables. And unlike other industries that a marketing degree functions, that won't work in Web3. Same applies for copywriting, same applies for development, same applies for any other category of skill set that you're looking for. So this becomes the dilemma, the hiring dilemma. Where do you find talent in an underdeveloped industry made up of young talent? This right here is the multi-million-dollar question. And what we have been doing at Unfungible is something that I can sum up with you that falls under what I call Unfungible's hiring philosophy. And before I share where I find, hire, and interview talent, which I'm going to be sharing the whole thing with you, what I want to bring you into is how I think about hiring in Web3. There are two types of individuals. Let's take the example of person A right here. And then we have person B. There are two variables that I look for in hiring a team. The first one I call, so right here in green, culture fit. And then right here in red, I call skill set fit. Let's say we had person A, which happened to be, if this was a ranking system, with that being a 10 over 10, and this right here being a 1 over 10. Let's say person A had a 9 over 10 skills in terms of what you're looking for. Let's say you are looking for a project manager to roll out your project. They have a 9 over 10 skill set, but they only happen to have a 3 over 10 culture fit with your organization. Then we have person number 2, which happens to have, let's say, a 5 over 10 skills. And then they had a 9 over 10 culture. Which of these two people do you think I would lean towards hiring? The first person, who happens to have a 9 over 10 skill, is probably going to cost 2 to 3 times more expensive than person B. And when I say 2 to 3 times, I actually mean it. I've seen rates out there. I've seen what people charge. Someone with years of experience that has made it into becoming a 9 over 10 project manager. They have experience with all the project management tool. They know how to do things. Oftentimes, these come at a premium. They charge, you can think about anything between $6,000 to $12,000 per month. While a person B, let's say they are in their young 20s. So young 20s. Someone like a person B could easily, you can get them to pay them $2,000 to $3,000 per month as an entry position. But then, where I come in as a project owner, is I spend the difference in pay, and my goal would be to elevate their 5 over 10 skills into them becoming a 7 or an 8 over 10. You see, the reality of things is it's easy to hire for skills, but it's hard to hire for culture. Someone that gets the ethos of your company, someone that gets the culture, that is a cultural fit, that lifts up the entire company. And I mean it because I've hired people that are not a cultural fit. And the impact that this has on team productivity, on their own productivity, is immense. You can take an A player, put them in an environment that is not the right fit for them, and they will become a B player. And you can get a B player, put them in the right environment, with the right core values, with the right team, and that B player will all of a sudden find themselves becoming an A player. This is the power of a culture, especially in an industry like Web3, which is oftentimes how teams move, how teams do things is very different than what a lot of this talent right here, the person A, might be used to. So where we have gotten good at Unfungible is the ability to train skill set as quickly as possible to go from a 5 over 10 experience into an 8 or 9 over 10 skill sets. The reality of things is most of the time, unless you are hiring for something that is incredibly critical, you are hiring for something that will either make or break your project. Let's say the smart contract of your launch. You bet you want to find the person that is most qualified for the job. But the reality is, for most of the other things, a lot of the work is learning on the job. Even if you bring an executive into an executive from a Fortune 500 company and you put them in a new company, the first thing they need to do is just learn how the company functions, learn how people move, learn the culture of the business. And if it's not a right fit, we've seen this a lot of times in companies where good CEO comes into wrong cultural fit companies, and just like a foreign body that ends up being injected in your body, the body's going to reject it. So this right here is the Unfungible philosophy of hiring. Don't hire for current potential, hire for future potential. A lot of it is like women date. Women do not date a guy for who he is today. They date a guy for who he might become. And for me, when I look for talent, the reality is finding 9 over 10 skill set in Web3 incredibly rare. It is very hard to find someone that has years of experience working in the industry. It's even more rare to find someone that has the skill set plus the cultural fit. Getting that combination of the two, even more rare to do so. So in an industry where you will need to hire rapidly as you're growing, the real goal become, how do you become good at training for skill set? For us at Unfungible, one thing we've worked on a lot was the onboarding experience when we bring talent in. Every single system we have, everything we do that we expect people on our team to do. Let's say we have a project manager. So what is a project manager? What does their day-to-day look like? What are the things that they do? What are the things that they must know? We have courses. We have training material on what they should do, on how they should act, on what they have liberty to do and what they have liberty not to do. I can go in depth here, but all the way from training material to empowerment wheels, which is a wheel that show people out of all these things right here that make up your job, here are the few things that you need the CEO approval. Here's where you should go to your manager. And here's everything you have liberty to do in your day-to-day job. That way people know, and people have described it joining Unfungible. They've said, like, Leon, I've worked at a lot of companies before. I've never seen that level of execution when it comes to the onboarding of new talent. So this right here becomes the first step. Think that whoever you hire, you're going to have to train. You're going to have to train no matter how good they are, no matter how much experience, no matter how good they sell themselves. And I'm going to tell you more on this a little bit later during my hiring process. How is it that we hire? But the next question becomes, who are we hiring? The reason why, going back to the example of the project founder who ended up hiring a marketer, an influencer, to run the influencer marketing strategy. The reason why this failed for them is they were looking for a leader and they ended up putting a doer in the responsibility of a leader. The reality of things is the skill sets of a leader are very different than that of a doer. A doer, one of the things they should be good at is time management. They should be detail-oriented. They should sometimes be creative in how they do things. These are the skills of a doer. A leader, on the other side, has very different skill sets. They are very good. They must be good at communication. They must be good at EQ, so emotional quotient is very good. Resourcefulness, so they must be resourceful. Proactive. They must be able to operate in situations where the variables given to them are unknown and they have to go out and figure things out for them. I've made the mistake myself of getting someone who is a good doer and moving them into a leadership position. Great example, because again, I've made these mistakes myself. Someone that was the best at their job. And all of a sudden, I spoke to that person. I was like, hey, by the way, like from day one, incredibly proud of what you do. I'm very impressed every time by your work ethics, your dedication, your ability to execute. So we ended up, as we grew, moving this person into a leadership position to manage others. And that's where things started to take a different turn. I remember one of the person that we put to work under that new leader, great player. Like I've worked with him on different departments. We moved them into that one new department. And all of a sudden, that second person, their performance started to drop. They, for the first time ever, started to show up late on meetings. Although we are we have a culture of being on time. They started missing on small details. So we sat together, my business partner and I, and we tried to understand what was happening. Because in one department, this person was doing great. But then in this other department, under this new leader, he was underperforming. It took us to bring in an external contractor that analyzed our business, did a lot of things outside of just looking at the talent that we have, to realize that we had the right person in the wrong seat. We had the right person to do the job that was in the wrong seat as a leader. That person should have not been a leader. It is not in their natural instinct and ability and desire to become a leader. Leadership is something that is taught and it can be learned. However, it is a skill that people do need naturally. It is something that they must be really passionate about having. For example, the leader that we took from a doer into a leader, they loved the opportunity. They were like, Leon, I never thought of this, but I'd love to take this on. I'm hardworking. I'm eager to learn. Let's do it. Versus another leader that we have internally that we put as a leader, and it was a perfect fit for them. They always, growing up, they've always wanted to become a big player at a company. They've always wanted to be the type of person that manages people. He was very good with people. He was very good with systems. He was very good at problem solving, which made him a natural fit for the leadership position. So for you, are you looking for a leader or are you looking for a doer? That is the first thing I would ask myself. Are you looking for someone to work with things, or are you looking for someone to work with people that are working with things? Then the next question becomes, how do you identify if a leader is a good leader and if a doer is a good doer? And this brings me to my 3-step interview process. And then after this, I'm going to be sharing with you where do I vet my talent and where was I able to build and attract the talent that we have that make up Unfungible today. So the 3-step interview process. Interview number 1, what you're trying to look for is abilities. So let's say you're hiring a graphic designer. That person needs a minimum ability to do graphic designing. Like you cannot hire someone for a graphic designing position and they are at a 2/10 skill where they've only used paint growing up on their computers, on their dad's computer. You want someone that has the ability to execute on what you have put in front of them. The bare minimum is them being able to do what is asked of them. So abilities test. This is where I would hop in with someone, and this would usually be a 15-minute interview. And this is where you want to go wide with your interviews. You want to interview a lot of people. You want to bring your funnel in as big as possible. This is the talent funnel. Step 1. So here we have step 1, step 2, and here step 3. Usually in step 1, I will interview at least 20 people for a role. I've made a promise to myself. If I interview less than 20 people for one position, I have not hired well for that position. This was learning based on just mistakes that I've made. So first one, I'm going to try to find for abilities. And I'm going to go wide here. This is where during the interview, I'm going to sit down with people and I'm going to 15 minutes. And I'm going to ask them like, hey, what experience do you have? What have you done? I saw on your resume that you worked here. Can you tell me about this? And it's like beautiful. If at this step I feel like they have the experience, I will move them into step number 1.2, which is the test. And this is where I'm going to be like, and a great example, graphic design. I'm going to be like, okay, here are 3 examples of graphics that we've made for our clients. I would please like you to make something new for that specific project. And usually I will actually give them a work that we have in the pipeline. So I will see, okay, do they do this better than the person we have in-house? Or do they do this better than what I would envision would be done if you do not already have this position filled? And usually I would give people a 3-day deadline and I would wait back for their answer. You're going to notice a lot of people are going to filter themselves out in this very first step. So in step 1, a lot of people are just going to filter themselves out. You're going to get people coming in to the interview, camera off. You're going to get people not showing up. You're going to get people that will tell you, oh, Leon, I just saw the ad, so I thought I'd hop on. why I thought I'd send you a message. And yeah, you know that thing I put on my resume, this was actually like 2 years ago, or it didn't go as planned, or it didn't go like people will just eliminate themselves during this process. Step number 2, after the people that have conducted the test, the very basic test, that's where you're going to invite them to interview number 2, which is a culture test. And during the culture test, you're going to think my litmus test, and I promise you, this is not an exaggeration, but it is, could I sit down having dinner with this person over drinks, and would I enjoy myself for 2 hours? If the answer is no, then you're probably not going to enjoy working with this person. And your team, neither will they. So during this 30-minute interview, let's say I started with 20, I would have 6 to 7 people at this stage. I just want to get to know them. What do these people do? What are their hobbies? What do they enjoy spending their time doing? What is an example of a time where they had to face a difficult circumstance at work? What was an example where they faced a crisis and they had to solve it? That's where the more EQ-driven questions come in. And during this stage, you're going to eliminate people. So the elimination is no connection. So you just don't connect with this person. Bad vibe, shallow answers. Usually right after the culture interview, I will invite people to step number 3, which is the on-the-job interview. And typically here, I would end up with 2 to 3 candidates. And this is like the real elimination. By step 2, you would know like, oh, I really like 1, 2, and 3. I really like these people. Step 1, you usually always, from my experience, I always have 2 to 3 favorites. Then step 2, these 2 to 3 favorites, they end up changing. So I actually have one person that was my favorite. It gets replaced by this other person. And then step 3 is really where you want to remove all the biases. Hiring someone should be as unbiased of a role, of an undertaking as possible. So what I would do here, I would usually make this 45 to 1 hour, is I would actually ask them to solve problems as they would on the job. So I literally pulled for one of the last positions that we hired. It was a project management position. I had great candidates, like really good candidates. I had the first day of interviews for step 1. I had a candidate, I was like, okay, this is like perfect. And then the 2 days after, I had 2 new candidates. I was like, no way. This is really hard. So then we moved to step 2, and these 3 people remained the favorites that I had. And then step 3 was the hardest one. And what happened during step 3, one of the people ended up showing that they are actually not the right fit. And through the process, ended up making me realize that, this person had a couple of red flags that I'm glad we moved forward, because that would have caught me later down the line. And during the step 3 interview process, you want to sit down and you actually want to run people through your current day-to-day and what are some of the problems that you're facing in the business. And you would ask them, how would you go about solving this issue right here? And this is where, when you get to learn from your candidate, that's how you know that this is the right person. For example, we had someone come in for a project management position, and they had experience working at a very big multinational company in Web2. So they came in, great fit. That person, she's been watching my content for years. She really loves, she's bought into the Unfungible ethos. So cultural fit, she was there. And then she came in, she was like, yeah, Leon, so this problem is actually really interesting. I've actually dealt with something very similar when I was working in my previous job. And the way we've done this is using this framework. So she actually gave me frameworks that I had never learned before. And as a framework guy, I was like, wow, this is really good. I really like this. And that is how I was able to turn 3 candidates into 1 hire. So 3 into 1 hire, which actually ended up being a really good hire, like one of the best hires that I've done in a while. That person came in and she created automations that we had never seen before. She's done stuff beyond just her scope of work. So this right here has been the hiring philosophy that I've been using. So the 3-step interview process that I've been using. Believe me, go for this. Even if you find yourself with a candidate from step 1 where you're like, this is my person, go through the process, because you're going to notice some people will filter themselves out through the process, and someone you thought was great in step 1, you'll find that by step 3, not as good of a fit as you would have hoped. Now, this brings the question, where do you find talent? And where did we find talent at Unfungible? And this is where I'm going to tell you about our 3 talent acquisition path. And these are the 3 ways I've seen every project that has hired good people, they've used one of these 3 methods. The first one, which accounts for virtually 95% of my hires, have come from step number 1, which is the founder funnel. And this is when you build a brand in the space where people follow you. People just like what you do. And then at some point, let's say a position opens up, you end up making a post on your socials. You're like, hiring for this. And it turns out that the people who were most bought into Leon before they were bought into the role ended up becoming the people that were the highest cultural fit. They had the greatest willingness to stretch themselves and learn new skills. Literally, none of the people that I've hired from the founder funnel have ever left the company. Never. I've only had one person leave the company and a couple others that I fired. But the ones that came from the founder funnel, none of them ever left yet. None of them ever left the company. And we've been hiring for over 3 years now that we have people outside of me and my business partner, Kermit. So the founder funnel. The other way, which is 5% of how I've hired, is through word of mouth. So what I do when I am hiring, I always do the founder funnel and the word of mouth. And I always ask, I put a post out and then I ask my connections. I'm like, by the way, I am looking for this specific role. Do you happen to have anyone in mind? And usually people that do end up referring talent over, usually very good talent. And most of the time, the people I know that hire, they hire off word of mouth. So this is the main way that they are hiring. So they are using word of mouth as the main way. They ask their connections, they get referrals in, and then these end up being good candidates because A players hang out with A players. For me, the founder funnel as a way of hiring has just been so effective that I've been leaning on this. But I do see a world where, let's say we go from hiring 1 position a month to hiring 1 position a week or 2 positions a week. That's like hyper growth. Then I can imagine the bottleneck with the founder funnel. And that's where having a big network of people you can tap into becomes important. The third way, which has been also very useful, is the talent funnel. So the talent funnel, one of the things we had on our Unfungible website is, let's say this is our page, these are our images. We had a little button here called hiring. Through that, we were able to get about 300 to 400 people applying on this website in about 6 months. And we kept it open. So I was anticipating what are the roles that we would always need to hire for. So on our side, we'll always need project managers. We'd need client success managers. We always need people to work with me in sales. So I put these up and I opened them. And the thing is, as you're building, people go on your website and they see you're hiring. So people end up applying to this. What is interesting is 100% of all the people that I've hired from the founder funnel also ended up applying to the talent funnel. So I would look up these names on the talent funnel, big Excel sheet that I had, and all these people would be there. So as part of your project, let's say you have a project on your website, always have a form where you are always hiring. This, by the way, super popular in the agency space. And I have friends of mine who do this. They keep it open all year round, 24/7, even if they're not hiring for that specific responsibility. They have the job open because when a talent presents themselves, you want to make sure you hire them. Even if there is no position for them, if someone that is like a talent presents himself, you want to make sure you bring that person in. The second thing is that way when you have when you have the position that is open, you already have someone you can just scoop in immediately. So for me, the talent funnel and the founder funnel have been interoperable because for me, the talent funnel is built on the founder funnel. So people who go to the talent funnel is because they've seen my founder funnel. But some projects, they are disconnected. Some projects have marketing channels that are running separate from that of the founder funnel. Totally reasonable. So that is one way. Now, the way that I would not recommend you to hire is through Web2 websites. So I have this story for you. In 2023, we needed to hire for a copywriter. So I had this idea. I thought, you know what, Leon? You have experience in Web2. You know very well that the top talent, the people that have the best skill set, years of experience, degrees and bachelors, these people are in Web2. What if I found a way to turn someone that was really good at skill set and managed to bridge them in Web3 so they can start performing like someone who has years of experience in Web3? So what we did is we created a course called Web3 Culture. And this was a course that had everything someone needed to know to become Web3 savvy. You know, someone that knew what OpenSea was, that knew why Bored Ape became so popular, that knew what made CryptoPunks so cool, that explained, we literally had a section called drama, all the big drama and all the things that happened. People could go, like the things that people see on the timeline, the inside jokes that the industry has. We had a section for that. So the goal was, how do you take someone that doesn't know about Web3 all of a sudden becomes Web3 native? And we hired for the copywriting position. So we ended up going on LinkedIn. We put a job posting for the copywriting position. And we ended up finding a very good candidate, like very good, very solid, very sharp. We decided to test our onboarding method. They come in, they go through the course. Things so far look great feedback. And then came the time to actually start performing and start producing work. And very quickly, I started realizing that what was being produced from a copywriting standpoint was really off-brand from what it looked like in the industry. You know, in traditional copywriting, you can use call to actions and you can talk about certain subjects with more directness and you can highlight the pain points and you can write things that highlight people's pains. Like in Web2 marketing, you can say things like, I was fat, which made me feel insecure. Being insecure, not being able to go up to girls and talk to them made me lonely. So all of a sudden, you attach being fat with being lonely, and all of a sudden you have the ability to sell your solution in Web 2. But in Web 3, you can't really say this. It's like, are you sick and tired of not being able to find the next 10x on your portfolio, which makes you poor, which prevents you from being able to hang out with where a lot of your friends are hanging out and meet all these other people and meet all these other girls that you want to meet at the club. You can't write something like this. But someone's marketing brain, like if you are a marketer, you think emotional problem, solution that solves the emotional problem. That in Web3 is very different. And it was very apparent. And I was stubborn on that person. I was like, again, one of the very first couple hires that I've had in my life. So I kept trying with them until I got a message on Signal from that person. He sends me a message. He's like, Leon, can I give you a quick call? I remember I was out having dinner with my brother here in Dubai. It was a Friday night. It was still midday for them. They were in Argentina. They give me a call and He's like, Leon, I'm gonna be honest, I really appreciate the opportunity, but I already found myself another job. It's at an architecture company. I'm like, okay, can I ask why? He's like, man, I just couldn't resonate with this industry. I couldn't see myself working in this. I just don't get it. And this hit me like it hit me. I heard it. I was like, I get it. I understand. You see, the thing about Web3 is that for you to be in that industry, to live, to work in that industry, you need to breathe Web3. I mean, bro, all I talk about, all I think about is Web3. So for someone to work full time in that industry, they also need to have that, number one, passion for the industry, but number two, they have to resonate with it. They have to resonate with the ethos of the industry, with the culture of how crypto Twitter moves and how they work and how they speak. Most people doesn't resonate with them. My recommendation for you is, if you are going to hire for a Web3 position, do it for someone that already has the cultural fit of Web3. So someone that, again, we have cultural fit from a company standpoint, but then we need cultural fit from an industry standpoint. And I would only hunt for people that are already sold on Web3 as an industry, or else it's going to cause problems down the line. So this right here is my little word of warning about how not to hire. So far, what we've spoken about is the hiring philosophy that we have at Unfungible. It's a lot easier to train a 9 over 10 cultural fit to become an 8 over 10 skill than to find a 9 over 10 skill and to get them 5 over 10 culture. Doesn't work. Number two, it's who are you hiring? Are you trying to get yourself a leader, or are you trying to get yourself a doer? Then we have the 3-step interview process that leads into the 3 ways you can hire talent. Number 1, the founder funnel. Number 2, word of mouth. And number 3, the talent acquisition funnel. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Leon Aboud. If we're not connected on X, make sure you follow me at LeonAboud_. And if you want to learn about how you can get started working on your founder funnel, why it's important, how it works, and how you can crush it with the founder funnel, make sure you watch this video right here.